Blast me to the Ramesses system. It's time for the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey, issue 86. Full coverage. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey. And today we are starting our Redemptor Dreadnought trifecta. So, we got 3 issues, 86, 87 and 88, to build up our Redemptor Dreadnought. I am going to break it down into 3 videos, one for each issue, as there is a lot of content to cover. Plus, it lets us look at each of the individual frames we get on an issue-by-issue basis. But before we dive into anything, don't forget to, of course, like this video if you are enjoying the content. And if you are, please do subscribe to the channel, as it's the only way you can keep up to date with all my mad content. And finally, don't forget to check all my links in the description down below, including the ever helpful Mad Merlins Patreon, where there is now a dedicated Partworks tier for you to support. So let's take a look at issue 86. We got our frame first to take a look at, and then we'll take a look through the actual magazine. So issue 86 brings us our first frame, and it's pretty much all our guns and other weapon systems. There's not a lot you can actually build up with this issue. We can, of course, glue together, if you want, our main guns. So we've got the Macro Plasma Incinerator or the Heavy Onslaught Gatling Cannon. We also have the choice of either a Heavy Flamer or a Mini Gatling Cannon for the Power Fist arm. And we have the chest guns here. So you've got the choice of either Stormbolters or some rocket pods there. We also have the anti-air rocket pod, which goes on the back. We also have finally we have the startings of the Power Fist. So we have the actual center palm itself, the outer gauntlet, and the fingers. So you can build them, but you won't get very far. We also have the 2 fronts there to cover the sarcophagus and the sarcophagus itself, plus a few decorative items in the form of purity seals. So, like I said, not a lot you can actually get done with this particular issue, but it's a nice start to a rather centerpiece model for the Space Marines. Right, let's take a look through 86. We have a lot of information to go through, so let's get started. So here we have 86. And we have, like I said, a lot to go through. So we start with the battle record for our Dreadnought. We then have 2 new Space Marine heroes, Astorath and Lamartes. We learn about the war zone of Catachan, Tyranid assault details and the factions. We learn about the Flesh Tearers chapter, and we have a short story called Green Hell. Then we have the rules for the Redemptor Dreadnought, and we have our continuing campaign, our invasion on Megaria. Right, let's start then with our Redemptor Dreadnought's battle record. So, a heavily armed war walker. Redemptor Dreadnoughts are colossal war machines armed with an array of devastating weapons. Each of these towering walkers is piloted by a Space Marine who fell in battle, only to voluntarily continue the fight by being sealed within a Redemptor Dreadnought's sarcophagus. We've got the breakdown here of the different parts of the actual Redemptor. So we've got the Icarus rocket pod, primarily used for anti-aircraft, but it can be targeted against ground targets as well. The Macro Plasma Incinerator here, its main armament. We also have Stormbolters on the chest there, so anti-infantry guns there. We have the Redemptor Fist, brilliant and deadly, and the Onslaught Gatling Cannon as well. We can, of course, have alternate weapons. You can swap the Macro Plasma out for a Heavy Onslaught Gatling Cannon. And you also have the option there of a Heavy Flamer in place of the Onslaught Gatling Cannon. Of course, being a battle record, we can name our Redemptor Dreadnought, and this is Brother Lamos. He was run through by a Heretic Astartes blade as he fought to take down a Chaos Cult. We have some tick boxes here on tallying each time you win a battle with him deployed, the amount of melee kills he gets, and the amount of ranged kills he gets. And finally, we got a little space there to fill out his notable battle records there. Right, let's take a look at a couple of the Space Marine heroes. This one being Astaroth the Grim, Redeemer of the Lost. There is no rank within the Blood Angels more honoured or loathed than the Redeemer of the Lost. Its bearer must carry terrible burdens and enact harsh duties. The Redeemer is reviled, for he carries the blood of his brothers upon his hands, a stain that can never be removed. So, most recent of the bearers of the title Redeemer of the Lost is Astaroth the Grim. So, it's the Redeemer's job to kill any Blood Angels who have fallen to the Black Rage and have somehow survived their induction into the Death Company. It's not a nice duty, but it's one that Astaroth does take to a liking of doing. The Redeemer is equal to the rank of High Chaplain of other chapters. So, yeah, it's both a spiritual and a rather gruesome rank to hold. Yeah, Astaroth is pretty grim. By the looks of things, he's got staples holding his face on, so that's not the best of things to look on. One of my favourite Death Company characters, though, is Lamartes, Guardian of the Lost. Few knew the nuances and edicts of the cult sanguineus, or the doctrines and beliefs of the Blood Angels and their successors better than Chaplain Lamartes. For all his wisdom and knowledge, however, the chaplain was no less vulnerable to the effects of the Black Rage. So Chaplain Lamartes was a chaplain of the Blood Angels. He fell during the liberation of Hadriath 11, carving a path through Orc defenders. He fell to the Black Rage, and yet Astaroth, as he went to deliver the embrace of death to him, he left the chaplain alive. Though his eyes were bloodshot and muscles taut, the chaplain spoke clearly and cogently. Shocked, Astaroth demanded that the chaplain be put into stasis so he could be fully examined, and has been awoken many times to lead the Death Company to battle. So the Death Company is formed of warriors who have fallen to the Black Rage, armour painted black, a sign of mourning, and they are dispatched to the deadliest conflicts in the hope they will die as a Space Marine hopes to do so in bloody battle. Moving on to a new war zone, we have Catachan. The hardened jungle fighters of the Death World Catachan have served the Astra Militarum with distinction for millennia. When the homeworld came under attack, they resolved to defend it no matter the cost to lives and material. So this details the assault on Catachan, a not very nice world where even pretty much the planet itself is ready to eat you alive. So yeah, it was assailed by a force of traitors, both Space Marine and cultists. Here we have the jungle fighters. They are specifically trained to fighting in the death jungles. They wear very little in the way of armour, but take to enhance themselves with bionics and tactical gear. Yeah, pretty cool there. Moving on, we got more information about the Tyranids, and this is the Tyranid Assault. Often, the first wave of Tyranid bioforms prove lethal enough to overwhelm a planet's defences. On occasion, however, the defenders prove more resilient. The Tyranid hive fleets have developed many lethal strains of creature to deal with the obstinate foes. Reports from the front lines capture but a fraction of the horror these beasts inspire. Continuing then, our inquisitorial report, this details how the Tyranids deal with an assault on a more difficult to shift foe. So, if the opponents are a little bit more resilient than the smaller creatures can deal with, they release larger warrior organisms. They also release creatures such as the Venomthropes here, who deal with poisons to help slay the enemies. And if they are assaulting fortified positions, they unleash creatures such as the Tunneling Raveners, brutal Carnifexes, and even the leader beast's Hive Tyrant. Next up, we take a look at one of the Blood Angel's successor chapters, the Flesh Tearers. Savage and feral, the Flesh Tearers have established a reputation for ruthlessness and are feared as much by their supposed allies as they are their enemies. So the Flesh Tearers, much like all Sons of Sanguinius, are brutal on the assault. The Flesh Tearers more so than others. They revel in close quarters combat and are proud of their long heritage as a second founding chapter. During the devastation of Baal, they did send aid to their parent chapter's homeworld with pretty much full force. The chapter was pretty much nearly wiped out, but at near the same time, the first of the Indomitus Crusades were released, and they took on new reinforcements in the form of the Primaris Space Marines. Though these were mistrusted, they have proved themselves to be the equal of their Eldars. So, our story then for this issue is Green Hell. This focuses on a squad of Catachans as they seek to eliminate orcs on their home planet. An infestation of orcs plagues the wilds of Catachan. The jungle fighters seek to use the terrain of the Death World against their greenskin foes, luring them to their deaths. As battle rages, the flora and fauna of Catachan stir to life, hungry for fresh meat. So yeah, pretty cool story, following Sergeant Brodin here as she leads her squad and their Chimera transport through the jungles. Yeah, noting many of the dangerous creatures and plants within the jungles. And yeah, it focuses as well on the orcs that they are hunting. There's some really nice action scenes in the story, and it's a pretty lengthy one as well. Yeah, we see the orcs and the Catachans engage in brutal guerrilla combat there. And here we have one of the greatest creatures of Catachan, known as the Catachan Devil. Some believe it to be a subspecies of Tyranid. Yeah, pretty nasty creature. So, Sergeant Brolin, luckily though, she survives the conflict as the Catachan Devil takes to munching up the orcs. We have rules for our Redemptor Dreadnought, so it's a pretty potent War Walker for the Space Marines. So he has 13 wounds in total, has a reducing style of stats, It comes basic with the Fragstorm grenade launchers, heavy flamer, heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, and the fist. But you can, of course, upgrade it to include a rocket pod, Gatling cannon, swapping out the heavy flamer, plasma cannon swapping the onslaught Gatling cannon, and storm bolters replacing the Fragstorm grenade launchers. So we have Duty Eternal and Angel's Death rules. So Duty Eternal is each time an attack is allocated, subtract 1 from damage, and it has the Explode rule as well. So as we'll see in the next issue, we are shown how to build and paint only one set of equipment, but nothing stopping you from giving your choice of war gear to this guy, as it does give us at least the rules for everything, and even has tutorials on picking out which you prefer. Then we have our invasion on Megaria, 75 power, 4 battle mats. Player B splits their deployment across the 2 short edges, and player A is the center there. So yeah, doesn't look like it specifies any particular. Necron player is player B in this mission, and Necron player must deploy closest half of their units in the deployment zones. So yeah, Imperium defense in the middle while the Necrons close in. Into the next issue, we continue our Redemptor Dreadnought. We have a build guide in 87 and an in-depth paint guide in issue 88. So that's it for this issue. Not a lot to do building wise, as we have just only one part of the frame, but we have a nice lot of lore there to read. It was quite a nice issue. So let me know what you thought of this down in the comments section below. And I am off to start filming the next issue. So stay tuned for that. It'll be coming up shortly. So thank you all again for watching, and I will see you next time on the Imperium journey. Goodbye.